Welcome everybody to another YouTube Hangout. Super excited to be here with a new friend, someone we've rescheduled to get back on because he's got some amazing content ideas to share with us. Mr. Matt Gielen, he is an expert on YouTube and figuring out the algorithm. And we're going to talk for the next half hour about how to dissect it and help your YouTube channels grow. So Matt, welcome aboard, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
You want to give a little context, a little background for the audience just so they know what you're all about?
Sure. So my name is Matt Gielen, and I'm formerly the VP of Programming and Audience Development at a place called Frederator. You may have seen some of our stuff before. We made Adventure Time and Fairly Odd Parents and a whole host of other cartoons that were extremely popular on TV. I got to work on the digital side, focusing on building the audience for Cartoon Hangover, which had the cartoons Bravest Warriors and Being Puppy Cat and a whole host of really awesome shorts on there. And then I oversaw the programming and audience development for Channel Frederator on YouTube. We did really well there. In about a year and a half, we built that channel up to about 1.1, 1.2 million subscribers, doing anywhere between, I think around 8 and 17 million monthly views. And then I also helped build the Channel Frederator Network.
Love it. So you put out this detailed report. I forget where it was published. It was on one of the blogs talking about the YouTube algorithm. And I think I reached out to you on Twitter afterwards, and we had a little bit of discussion back and forth about it. What are some of the things that you discovered for the people who haven't read the article? And we should link that up so people can dive deeper if they want, but what are some of the things that you discovered that people aren't doing that could really help their YouTube channels grow?
Things that people aren't doing that would help their YouTube channels grow, I would say, is kind of taking a look at your content and recognizing if there is content that's actually hurting the viewership on your channel. We found evidence to suggest, I don't think it necessarily proved it outright, but it suggested that uploading a video that got less than 3% of your subscribers to watch in the first 48 hours could actually cause viewership on your entire channel to drop, including your library of videos. And we see this most commonly like in channels that kind of go into like a bit of a death spiral, where either, people aren't watching their newest videos, or maybe their content's gotten a little stale. And what ends up happening is that their library of videos begins losing traffic from like suggested videos and search, and they start dropping out. And so this suggested to us that there's kind of like a meta score or a meta algorithm that's basically like, if you're hitting these combination of factors, we're going to rank all of your videos in our discovery algorithms higher. And so that's like things like, browse and suggested and recommended and related, and all the various places those show up, most importantly on the homepage and on watch pages. And if you keep uploading those, quote unquote negative uploads, it can tank your channel, is kind of what we saw. And conversely, if you're regularly doing, 10, 12, 15% of your subscribers in the first 48 hours, you'll see your channel really, really begin to grow to a certain extent. So those are some of the higher level findings of the article. We also found really cool stuff about like duration. Literally videos that were just longer, right? So whether that video was 15 or 20 minutes or 25 minutes made a huge difference in terms of viewership. And then kind of as a subcategory to that, the audience retention on those videos also had an impact on algorithm. I don't think that's news to anyone. I think this was the first time anyone kind of put out any sort of like data behind that showed, when we had a video that would get a 12 or 13% average view duration, we would get like 2x our subscribers in terms of overall viewership. So, we had about 1 million subscribers when we did this research. Videos that would get 2 million views were doing about 150,000 views from our subscribers in the first 48 hours. And the reason I use subscribers as a number, I don't actually think the algorithm really cares whether it's subscribers or not. I think it has to do with a concept called view velocity, which is that they see this video accruing so many views in the first 48 hours, YouTube says, oh, this video is really important for the topics and keywords with which it falls under, and the interests with which it falls under. So let's serve this video to people with that same interest. And you'll get a lot of click-through. And if that retention, the audience retention and the click-through stays the same as it expands it, it'll continue to expand it over time. Now, I think there's probably stages. We're going beyond the article now, mainly because this stuff fascinates me and I can't help but continue to think about it.
I love it.
If you think about a video's lifespan and kind of like certain stages, right? Like you have that first 48 hours window where YouTube is really kind of analyzing your video and seeing what it's all about, right? It's first and foremost, it's taking in kind of the metadata that you put in, right? And this is everything from average video length, title, description, tags, closed captions, and then it starts taking into account things like comments and who's clicking on it and what they've watched before and so on and so forth, right? It starts building that into it. And there's kind of like this 48, 72 hour window where YouTube is basically saying, you know, what is this video all about and how good is it? And by good, it means really like how good is it at creating a lot of watch time on our site, right? It has nothing to do with quality or anything else. It's how good is it at keeping people on our site. Now, you can pull from that, you know, the better quote unquote quality video is going to generate that, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. And then outside of that, right, there's kind of like the first week, 2 weeks, that, you know, the initial 2 or 3 days kind of leads to. And then after that, it's kind of the long tail of the video. And I think there's different kind of weightings at different times. I have to do a lot more research on it, but kind of what I've been seeing from like a top level and going, oh, that's something really interesting. I want to dig into the data on that. That's what's popping out at me.
Cool. And so what's interesting there too is you're saying that if a new video comes out and doesn't do well, then that could impact all your old videos too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, big time. And we should also take note that there's always going to be an element of like, if you have one video that's doing really well, there's going to be a certain percentage, you know, whether that's, you know, a fraction of a percent or 50 or 60% of the people that land on that video to watch that are going to go and watch your other videos, right? And, you know, that obviously is going to have an impact on viewership. But what we saw kind of more in the details is it's more of like a circular effect or like a wave effect where the waves kind of start building onto each other and start overlapping, right? So if you start having all these real successful videos, right, your graph starts to go, I think this is the right way on the screen. It's a little confusing. Yeah. So like your graph starts going like this with the ups and downs versus just kind of like this right along with like the uploads. And they kind of build on each other. But that being said, if we think about kind of the meta algorithm or the high level algorithm as like kind of a channel score, and say, well, if your videos are regularly gaining more audience than your subscribers, that means that your channel should have more subscribers, right? Because you're reaching beyond your audience from a viewership perspective. And I think YouTube takes that into account. And similarly with watch time. Now it could boil down to something as simple as like, well, your channel is generating a ton of stickiness for our site, so we want to send more people to your channel so that they, you know, stay on the site longer. And so, you know, I think it's a combination of factors, but certainly, you know, keeping people on the YouTube platform and continuing to outperform yourself is going to generate more audience.
Interesting. Let me ask you this. I don't know if you have data on it or not. For subscribers who are watching your video, if you had to have one call to action at the end of the video, would it be to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it? What's the priority of engagement afterwards, or do you know? Do we have that figured out yet?
So you were saying if you already get like 15, 20, 25% of your subscribers to watch, what would you ask them to do at the end of the video?
Yeah, or even if not, like even if you only gain 3% or whatever it is, like what's the highest impact thing that a subscriber can do for you? Where if you're a creator, you have a lot of creators who have like 20 calls to action at the end of a video, and as a result, they're not going to do anything, right? So you have to pick one, like, hey, a question of the day, leave it down below, the comment, or please guys, add this to a playlist or give it a thumbs up. Does it make a difference on the engagement to the algorithm?
I heard a saying recently that I really loved, which was tyranny of choice, where if you give a viewer too many choices, they're going to choose to do nothing and go away, right? So I think a pretty good rule of thumb is like no more than 3 calls to action, so that they have an option, right? It's a pretty solid rule of 3, right? Like you see that throughout so many things in life, and so giving people 3 options, I think, is probably the best place to be. I have not done any testing on it. I don't have data to back it up. I can say from a non-scientific standpoint that essentially when we reduced our calls to action from, I think, 7 or 8 to 3, we saw better performance. We're also making better content. But essentially, in order of importance, what I would say is watch more. First and foremost, mainly because watch time and keeping people on the platform longer is so incredibly important. And this kind of speaks to programming strategy, right? Like if you're making a video about LeBron James, you don't want to then tell people to go watch a video about, horseback riding, right? The people that are watching a LeBron James video probably don't care about horseback riding. Sure, there's a small percentage, but I don't think it's a huge percentage, right? You want to tell them to go watch another video about LeBron James, or if you don't have that, tell them to go watch a video about Kobe or Steph Curry or whoever it is, right? And you go from most relevant to least relevant in your video inventory from what video you ask them to watch next. The next thing I would say is subscribe, mainly because from that windowing perspective we talked about earlier in a video's life cycle, those first 48 hours are so important. And that makes subscribers unbelievably important, right? And so when you upload a new video, the first people that are likely to see that video and click on that video, giving that video like a watch time score, giving that thumbnail like a click-through rate, are going to be your subscribers, right? And they're going to be the best performers. And so from that perspective, the more subscribers you have, right, the greater reach you have, the more watch time, the more session duration time you're able to create, the better it's going to be for your video and for your channel. So number 2 would be subscribe. And then number 3 would probably be some sort of engagement. I've seen no indication that engagement has any impact on the algorithm whatsoever. There was in this day and age, historically, it's incredibly important, which makes me think that there might be still some weighting going on in the algorithm. And then if you also think about it from a more theoretical standpoint, videos that are engaging are likely to accrue more watch time simply by the fact that while someone is going to do that action, they're still watching the video, right? Say, hey, comment down below, right? Well, someone then has to think about your question. They have to think about what to write. Right, they have to actually type it out, right? Chances are, well, maybe not on YouTube, but in other places, people will go back and like check it for grammar and spelling. They're going to want to add their emojis. Not your audience. I'm sure your audience is good on that front.
I know there's lots of, man, in the live chat, there's going to be lots of emojis happening, so it's fine.
That takes time, right? And so maybe videos with like a disproportionate number of comments, right, are racking up this incredible watch time because people are literally having to sit there while the video plays and write out the comment. And in that scenario, it's like, well, which is it? Is it the watch time or the comment? It's like, well, the watch time doesn't happen without the comment. So, some sort of engagement action would be good, at the very least, to show that you actually care about what your subscribers and fans think and keep them engaged with the show.
Right. So comments too, what happens, somebody leaves a comment, somebody else responds, they end up coming back to the video. If they come back to the video and just respond to the comment, but without watching it again because they've already seen the video, they just want to be part of that thread, could that actually be a negative signal?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just engagement generally. Like I don't think. I'm sorry. Are you asking more about like if a repeat view happens?
Yeah, so so on this video, we're going to get comments afterwards, right? Maybe I respond to one and say, hey, Tamara, thank you so much for watching the video. She comes back to see my comment and just to leave another comment to say, hey, it was awesome. But she's not going to watch this whole half-hour thing again because she's seen it. If she ends her session there, does that negatively impact the video now?
I mean, theoretically, it could. Again, I don't have any data to suggest one way or the other. What I would say is that I know historically, YouTube has given algorithm weighting to videos that generate repeat viewing. And I think there's probably a lot of evidence in the kids space to suggest that, like, oh yeah, that can be really powerful if they do repeat viewing. So from that perspective, I would say, it's probably a toss of the coin either way. Generally speaking, though, I think if someone's coming back to stay engaged in the conversation, that's got to be a good thing.
Right. I'm thinking now at the end of a lot of my videos, I'll ask a question. So the question of the day is whatever, leave it below. But I'm never really doing, hey, here are some related videos that you guys might enjoy. If you're saying that's like the primary call to action should be watch more, then, should I, there's some selfish consulting here, should I change my strategy to like put 3 links in the description and say, hey guys, here are 3 videos I think you need to watch next. Go check them out in the description below, and not do a question of the day?
Well, I think you can still do a question of the day, but I think, yeah, you should absolutely tell people, what they might enjoy next. Because, like, you have to think about it from 2 perspectives, right? You have to think about it from your audience who has watched, a lot of your videos or many of your videos, and you have to think about it from a new audience, right? Because a lot of people who watch that video are not going to be people who are subscribed or who may have ever seen your video before, right? So it's a way of introducing them to your content and letting them know that you have a ton of other videos up that they might really like. And then if you think about, like, well, the reason why people are on YouTube is to be entertained and to discover things. And if, you can help them do that, I think that's really valuable to the audience. And yeah, it's really helpful to you as well. So, from that perspective, absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Well, the people in the live chat are saying, don't stop the question of the day, please. So I'll keep that for you guys. Okay, don't worry. Otherwise, you're going to get tons of hate tweets at you. Matt, come on, man. So for now, for creators who are looking to launch a new series on their channel, maybe they're doing 1 video a week, they want to go to 2 videos a week. The metric you would look at to judge the success of a new series would be subscribers watching the video?
That's a tough one. And that's a tough one because almost no matter how much promotion and marketing you do for the new series, right, it's not going to get as many views as like your current popular series. Mainly because, in my view, it shows up in a subscriber's feed and they're like, I don't recognize this, I don't understand this, I am not going to click on this, right? This is not something I usually watch. Here are 10 thumbnails of something I usually watch. I would like to click on one of those. Now, there's a whole bunch of strategies to get around that. But to answer your question about the success of a new series, I would focus on more about what the average view duration is. And if you're getting really good average view duration, like let's say you're 60 to 80% range, which I think is pretty damn good for longer videos. If you're in that range, great. If you're a little bit below that range, you might want to look at like the structure of the video. Are there ways to keep more people engaged longer? Is there a way to get into the video quicker? That sort of thing. But generally speaking, I think average view duration is going to be the most like apples to apples that you can do to your current series in a way to kind of measure the long-term viability of it. And in addition, I wouldn't cut a series until you're at least like 5, 6, 7 episodes into it, if it's something you care about and are passionate about. Mm-hmm. Mainly because, one, that's how long it's going to take to build any sort of audience for it out of your current subscriber base. But also it gives a good amount of content for people to go back to and check out in one go, right? Like the average YouTube video, you're talking about 5, 7 minutes. That's not a huge duration of entertainment time, right? Whereas if you have 5 or 6 episodes of that, well, now you're talking about like, yeah, I could sit down and eat a hoagie and watch 3 or 4 of these videos and determine if I like it or not, right? Like, did you see the Netflix study that came out that was like, Netflix knows exactly how many episodes of a show you need to watch to fall in love with that show?
Interesting.
Right? Yeah, and like for certain series, it was like you need to watch 3 and you're going to watch every season. For other shows, it was like you need to watch 7 or 8. And so, giving yourself a good enough kind of data set of 8 videos to kind of get a better feel for it, I think is kind of a good benchmark, somewhere in the 5 to 8 range for that.
So one of the things that we've been looking at as we add a new series in would be subscribers gained per video. Maybe that's not a great metric, but our goal is for every video series we put out, we want every video to be in the double digits of new subscribers joining. If it's negative, then that's a really bad series, obviously. But if it's like single digits, 5,
for your current audience, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad series, right? Which is the problem, right? Like, in my view, YouTube doesn't give a hoot about any individual video all that much. There are a lot of exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, any individual video is not all that important to YouTube, in the sense of you might have the greatest. I'll give you an example from a movie and TV channel we had at Frederator called Cinematica. Cinematica, we built about 100,000 subscribers after like 3 or 4 months or something. We were doing about 3 or 4 million monthly views, and we built that audience mainly by doing like listicles and theory shows and this kind of crap about like The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and Marvel, right? And we wanted to be a more well-rounded audience. We wanted to bring more females in, so we did a listicle on Orange is the New Black. It was a perfectly fine video, perfectly good video, nothing revolutionary, nothing crazy. Like, it shouldn't have done 10 million views, but it should have done way more than like the 4,000 views that it did, because the average video on that time did a couple 100,000 views for us. And so, that was the first indication that I had that was like, okay, they don't really give a crap about how good of an Orange is the New Black video that is. What they give a crap about is whether the people that they served it to, which happen to be your subscribers, right? Because that's who gets to see it first, clicked on it, right? And if those people didn't click on it, right, they're not going to go and say, well, this is a great Orange is the New Black video, right? And they're not going to give it a chance to be a great Orange is the New Black video. Maybe over time, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it gets picked up or something happens to it. But out of the gate, no, right? So that's part of what led to this idea of like, you have to focus on this very specific niche. And so with that in mind, that's why I think like a negative subscriber number is a really hard way to judge a new series, because it's only about that series and your audience, right? It's only about how the very specific audience that you currently have access to interprets that video, right? And whether or not they like it, or it makes them unsubscribe or whatever it is. So from that perspective, I would really encourage you to not look at that as a primary metric when a new series first goes up. Like, give it some chance. Let me fight for your children. Like,
I love it. I know, you are obsessed with data and trends and figuring stuff out and hacking your way. What's the next thing you're looking at? What are some of the things that are on your radar that you're exploring, and the next blog post is going to come out and drop some new knowledge bombs on?
Well, I've gotten really excited about a couple of things. So like, one of the biggest questions I see, like when I'm trolling on like, our partnered YouTube and our YouTube, is like, how do I launch a channel, or how do I get audience? And, it feels like there's no way to build a YouTube channel in this day and age, and all that kind of stuff. And like, that definitely irks me, because I think there is. Now, I also understand that I've had the benefit of working with existing audiences, right? So like, yeah, we built Cartoon Hangover more or less from scratch, but we were kind of riding on the coattails of the creator of Adventure Time, right? And there was a baked-in audience there for Bravest Warriors, which led us to our first, couple 100,000 subs. And then, when we started launching Channel Frederator, we leaned on Cartoon Hangover and were able to send audience over. But that said, I've helped channels launch over the last like year or two, and I've seen them become extremely successful. And I think I'm going to start, my next big one would probably be that, how to launch a channel in 2017, right? And drive audience. The second one that I'm been thinking about since VidCon, which I'm really excited about, is actually the audience side of the algorithm, right? Because I took a picture of a whiteboard drawing that I'm going to look up while trying to do this. But I gave my whole, reverse engineering the algorithm presentation at VidCon. And then afterwards, I was talking to a YouTube engineer. And, he came up to me and he was like, he was limited in what he could say. And he was basically like, you weren't wrong. You weren't necessarily right. But one of the things you should think about is the audience, right? And I was like, oh man, that's a really good point, because my focus is always on creators and content creation and that sort of thing. But what that got me thinking about was like, I've never seen anyone do a really, really interesting analysis on what YouTube serves audiences based on what they think about them. And part of what spurred this was I went into my Google account and I saw that they had me labeled as like, having 10 different interests. And like, of course, like the first one was like YouTube, YouTubers. I was like, well, shocking. But essentially, Google labels you and what you're interested in and serves you content and search results based on that. And so my thinking was there has to be a like very moderately, and I get that it's like, okay, apparently I didn't take a picture of it. There has to be a moderately scientific way to try and see what YouTube would serve to someone that they believe is interested in XYZ, right? Whether that's like cars, beauty and makeup, whatever it is. So like, I want to create like 10 demographic profiles within Google, check that against what they say that I'm interested in, and then go to YouTube on like a fresh cookie-free browser and see what they serve, right? And watch some videos and see what happens and just record the whole thing. Right, to be like, oh, well, YouTube served us 50 thumbnails when we landed on the homepage. And of those thumbnails, 80% of them were 10 minutes or longer. Or just try and see what it is. Now, I got a feeling I'm going to get a ton of Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, right? No matter what kind of demographic, because they need help. No matter what kind of demographic information I put in. But I'm curious. I want to see what happens. And so that's going to be the next one.
Cool. And so for people to follow along on your experiments, I discovered you through the blog post that you put on, I think it was Tubular Labs. Was it Tubular Labs? Tube Filter. It was Tube Filter. That was it. Maybe I'm ignorant. Are you posting this stuff? Do you have your own platform? Are you putting it up on Twitter, your own blog, your own YouTube channel where you're sharing this, or is it just, yeah, I want to follow Matt around and not just hope I find his articles. I want to make sure, my audience gets the next gold that comes out.
You can certainly follow me on Twitter, at Matt Gielen. That's MattGielen. I post a lot of work Tube Filter, and I post it in other places. I am potentially looking to do some other pretty cool things here soon that I can't talk about just yet. But I'll be certain to let you know as soon as that's up and live.
All right. Okay. A little mystery there, a little ninja stuff happening on in the background. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I followed along most of the guys who are doing the like YouTube advice and how to explode your channel and all that stuff. And you definitely have a different perspective, which I think people would really, if you wanted to start a YouTube channel talking about this stuff or blog or whatever, I think you'd bring a lot of value and build an audience pretty quickly. And I'm happy to help out with that too, man. I want to know the next thing that launches. You got to hit me up. We'll do another one of these and drop some knowledge bombs on the audience. Cool. Well, it's amazing how quickly half an hour flies. I know you got to get back to the client you're working with there in New York. Is there any final message that you want to leave the audience? I know we talked about following you on Twitter. Is there anything else that you're trying to promote or spread awareness of?
No, nothing that I'm trying to promote or spread awareness of just yet. I was on Tim's podcast, and I have a tendency to look very coldly at the numbers and stop thinking about it in terms of audience or creators. I must be gaining that through osmosis from YouTube. But one of the things that he brought it back to, and I was like, that is a really good point, and I should probably try to keep that in the forefront of my mind, which is, at the end of the day, make content that you're passionate about and you care about, right? And I think that's actually one thing that anyone could learn from looking at what you do, Evan. because you're very clearly passionate about this. You really care about helping people, and I think that's really, really awesome.
I love it. Well, thank you for the time. Thank you all you guys for watching live. Go check him out on Twitter. Continue to believe, or whatever your one word is, and we'll see you soon.